I'm going to spend some time talking about the ecosystem that we have here at Chef and some of the recent news that came out in the past few hours. And I've got some special guests, so I'm really looking forward to bringing them out in a little bit. So, when I think about what we're doing on the ecosystem side, this is really about supporting the needs of the modern enterprise. And at Chef, ecosystem means really what goes on at Chef, the hands-on the keyboard engineering work, the work that we do in terms of best practices, and the partners that we work with. And it's a laundry list of partners across compute, network, storage, service providers, global SIs, regional SIs. And it means the community. And you can probably lump partners into community, and you can lump Chef employees into community, right? But the community plays an incredible role in what we do here at Chef and how we think about the ecosystem. And just to capture it right, I have a team. Chef invests heavily in building out integrations, best practices, content to make it all happen for the modern enterprise. And what we get out of this kind of combination is something that you really couldn't get in software previously. We get this accelerated cycle of innovation. We get the scope of coverage to support the requirements of organizations that are moving from potentially legacy data center environments to the cloud. Companies that are doing hybrid cloud scenarios, right? And the relationships are pretty incredible. Like yesterday, we had AWS out with us working with executives in a DevOps leadership summit where we're bringing to executive audiences the same type of community that the practitioners around Chef enjoy. In addition, you probably saw earlier today, Mark Rusinovich up on the stage, right? A tremendous amount of energy going into Azure and what it takes to actually make workloads happen on Azure. A good example of what I'm talking about community plus Chef plus partners, can be seen when it comes to what the work we've done recently with F5. And with F5, in combination with Target, just announced on our blog, we just came out with the fact that we're automating F5 Big IP Local Traffic Manager. So this is a continuing investment we have on the networking side. And this investment that we're making on the networking side is really all about helping you, those of you who are automating with Chef, automate resources spanning Arista, Juniper, F5, a variety of different networking providers. In addition, we also are coming out with news around the support for Cisco. So we had support for Cisco Nexus, but now we're adding support for Cisco NXOS and iOS XR platforms. So this is really about addressing the core needs of large enterprises and service providers. And then James Casey this morning, he talked a little bit about what we're doing on the analytics side with Splunk. He gave a little highlight. He showed that great image of the dashboard, the Splunk app that we've done. But I also want to highlight on the analytics side that we have a growing ecosystem of partners who are working with us. That includes Sumo Logic. Sumo Logic, a cloud-native log analytics company. And they, too, have done integrations with Chef Analytics. And you should check them out. Really cool stuff. So one of the things I'm really excited to announce is the Chef Certified Partner Program. And so what I'd like to do is ask any of you in the audience who are wearing one of these nifty track jackets to stand up. This is awesome. So I'm really pleased to announce that we've got 8 partners that have worked with us to be launch partners around the Chef Certified Partner Program. And so what this is really doing is bringing to bear the quality bar, establishing a quality bar with a key set of partners. We're putting our brand behind them for what it means to go out and train around Chef, and do Chef deployments. So, whoops. So with that, here's the list. And I'll point out that Accenture is the first global system integrator to sign on to the Chef Certified Partner Program. And it's pretty amazing the investment they're making. Over 100 people are getting trained up in chef development. It's going to be part of their DevOps offering. As part of this, they're open sourcing key application, enterprise application cookbooks to the community. And this really builds on a 3-year relationship we've had with Accenture, where Chef has been a core part of the Accenture Cloud Platform, and we've been used extensively for automating infrastructure and applications for quite some time. In addition, I want to highlight Rackspace. So Rackspace is focused on building out a DevOps offering, a managed service offering, and they have a DevOps Cloud Advisory offering. And they're baking Chef into that. And they as well have established this quality bar around how they want to go about delivering and training when it comes to Chef. So again, hey, thanks everybody who went through the hard work of getting certified, and we're really looking forward to anybody in the partner community who has not yet been certified to become part of that certified program. Thanks so much. So I'm going to bring up my first special guest. And back in December, Chef announced some news around HP and how we're working with HP with their data center care team, which is part of HP Technology Services, to do great things with Chef. So joining me today is Scott Weller. Scott Weller is the Senior Vice President of Technology Services for HP. Scott?
Hey, man. Good to see you.
So, Scott, first off, why don't you just start by telling everybody a little bit about yourself and your team?
So, back around when the Earth cooled, I started my career in software development. And I spent about 20 years getting to do a lot of cool things like embedded software in cars and printers, did big IT projects. And I actually look back at those days and really, I loved every minute of it. It was just great. And I keep my hand in a little bit. My 12-year-old lets me help him with his Minecraft mods from time to time. So it's just great. So, more recently, I've been running a pretty large business in HP. It's a service business that's focused on the ops side, trying to create really great ops experiences with our hardware. Everything from trying to prevent outages all the way to sharing best practices. So that's where our traditional focus has been. And then we saw the market evolve, and that's kind of how we got involved with Chef.
Yeah, that's great. And what is really kind of the draw around Chef? I mean, you have HP is a big company, a lot of options.
Yeah. So that's true. I think there's a lot of great technology in the market, and also HP has its own products. When we started looking at how do we cater to developers in particular, how do we create great experiences for developers who want to use HP products, we had to make some tool choices and we had to make some process changes. And so we looked at kind of the whole picture and looked for tool providers who could go on that journey with us. And I think, there's, I don't want to say anything good or bad about other products, but I would say that sort of in every aspect, Chef met our needs, and also, in my opinion, it represents the zeitgeist of the environment. So I feel really good about the partnership, and also the product is outstanding. And I think, setting aside all the kind of traditional religious language wars and things that happen, I think this is a great place to be. And I really want to applaud all of you. I think you're onto something great, and I can't wait to see what happens next.
So that said, why don't you describe the joint offering and what you're actually taking to market?
Yeah. So it was pretty clear, and you remember in our first conversations, that we did not want to resell your product as much as we loved it. We wanted to create that experience. So we really became quite enamored of this whole notion of infrastructure as code. And if you want to create an experience around infrastructure that really follows that paradigm, you've got to not just have the tools, you've got to have holistic support. And what I mean by that is, you know, if you're a developer and there's an end customer issue, that might be a bug in the app that you've written or a bug in everything else. And I remember when I was a developer, I didn't want to care about the everything else. So if you want to have this, if you want to be true to this paradigm and this abstraction, you've got to have some way to say, okay, my life kind of begins and ends at the recipe. And you know, if there's an issue in the recipe or in the, you know, an interoperability issue in the stack or a firmware issue or even something wrong in the physical infrastructure, we want to be the ones that you turn to help resolve that so that you can now go focus on apps and continuous delivery and the recipes themselves. And so it was important for us to be enabled to do all of the above, and then in addition be smart enough to actually provide advice and guidance on how to optimize all that, which is what we've been doing for years and years on the pure ops side. So it's that whole experience, it's all the service, it's our center of excellence being able to do this at scale globally, and then obviously work with you guys for the really thorny issues. And so that's what we brought to market.
Right. And you know, for probably many people in the audience are HP customers. Mm-hmm. I've got to assume. What does this mean for the folks in the audience, and you know, what can they walk away from this knowing?
Well, I mean, I have my team in the hall next door for real deep conversations, but I think, again, it's really about how do we really get to this end state vision that we're talking about, which is literally the state of my data center looks like a piece of software. And how do I live in that world? How do I never, you know, how do I not sort of pretend to be in that world? And then the first little thing that happens, I'm right back to the old way, right? And so that is our mission. That's our vision for the future of data centers. So that really, you know, the analogy I use is a battery. Batteries come in all sizes. And when I was a little kid, I used to cut batteries open all the time. But most of us don't do that. And so we don't care what goes on in there, and we don't really want to know. And so that's really the model we want to have, which is I can deal with all this complexity with a new mental model, and I don't have to deal with anything else because somebody else is dealing with the messy insides.
Yep, that's great.
Yeah.
Scott, thank you so much for coming.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. Yeah, it's great. I feel really energized here, and I really appreciate the opportunity. And I think, yeah, if you have any questions, come visit us, and otherwise have a great event. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Scott.
Thank you.
So next up, we've got Canonical. And Christian Reese is going to come out on stage. Christian is the VP of Hyperscale for Canonical. And we announced a number of key news items with Canonical this morning, so I'm looking forward to having Christian come on out.
Is it okay? Hi there.
Christian.
Thanks very much.
So much. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
It's great to be here.
I'll leave it to you.
All right. So today, we've made an announcement together, both companies, that we both stand behind. And for me, it's a very exciting and momentous opportunity to talk about how Chef and Canonical have decided to partner together to make Chef experience on Ubuntu fantastic and to make customers of both sides reliant that both companies will stand shoulder to shoulder and say that Chef is fully supported on Ubuntu. So you've seen me here doing the final piece of setup here. We've decided to run both risks that everyone knows that you should not do in a live presentation, which is to run a demo and intersect that with trying to do a video conference. So I've decided to invite a colleague on that's also very excited to talk about this partnership. And he's been, well, waiting up because it's a bit late where he is. He's not in outer space, just across the pond over in the Isle of Man. Hello there. How are you doing?
Hello, hello, everybody.
Long time no talk.
How are you doing?
We've had smoother moments, but we're flying.
Well, I'm absolutely delighted to be joining you, and really excited at the reception that today's joint announcements between Chef.io and Canonical have generated. I absolutely believe that our most sophisticated and largest users have automation at the top of their agenda, and many of them prefer Chef as the automation tool of choice. So it's great to be serving their interests and committing first that engineers from Chef will have a direct say in the experience that Ubuntu users have of Chef. Chef.io engineers are going to choose the versions we publish in every Ubuntu release to every Ubuntu user, and we're going to give them a direct pipeline to accelerate patches and fixes in Ubuntu for Chef users. So those of you who are as passionate about Ubuntu as you are about Chef, will be delighted to know that when you apt-get Chef on Ubuntu, you're getting exactly the experience that Chef.io wants you to. The other half of that is that the two companies will stand shoulder to shoulder for those of you who count on us for commercial support. So whenever an issue is raised about Chef in Ubuntu, both companies will work to resolve that as fast and as professional as possible. And the reason we're so excited about that is the extent to which the scale and speed in the data center really are central to the modern enterprise. And Kiko, in his position as head of hyperscale, could probably tell you best what we see happening in the world out there.
Right. So in my day job, at night I set up demos and wrangle with HDMI. But in my day job, what I care about for Canonical is next generation server deployments. So people that are doing scale outs, high density, what you'd expect to see in a server in 2020. We've partnered with HP on Moonshot and done deep partnership there, worked with them on bringing multiple architectures available as cartridges there, worked with Cisco on UCS, on lots of other vendors that are doing next generation work. We've been at the forefront of that. We've been partners with ARM and IBM, bringing their architectures into Ubuntu as well and offering those as commercially supported to customers. And if you think about it, people that are doing hyperscale deployments, right, 500 to 5,000 nodes, for them, automation is not value add. Automation is essential. If you don't have automation, there's no way that you can run a production environment that large. Now, people that have been brought up in the cloud using Chef know exactly how that is supposed to feel like. It's seamless. There's no friction. You use Chef, and you can, through a knife, drive AWS instances, and then deploy recipes onto that, and it's perfectly seamless. But people that are on bare metal have sort of been stuck in the 1980s, because we left them with Pixie and IPMI and not much else, right? And so the reality is that if you're doing bare metal, you may have the most modern kits, and you've spent a lot of money on that. You're going to be driving that through the same old technology that you used to have. And so this, for us, is a key gap, a key point of friction for data center deployments, and we want to see that change. We want to drive that ahead, and Chef and Canonical today are partnering to change that.
So the way we're making that a reality is by collaborating around an amazing piece of open source software called MAS, or Metal as a Service. And MAS is like a REST API to all of the physical kit in your data center. And we'd like to give you a quick teaser trailer taste of just how incredible it's going to be able to drive physical infrastructure directly through Chef, just like you can drive your favorite cloud. Now on stage with Kiko, you've got one of the Ubuntu Orange boxes. And that's not a single server. That's actually a cluster of 10 Intel microservers. And the lights on the front are going to tell you which servers are on and show you disk activity on those servers. So Kiko, over to you.
Sure. So MAS is basically a tool which provides you with an API to drive a data center. So MAS knows how to talk all the protocols that are required to drive either scale-out chassis like Moonshot, like UCS, like cMicro, but it also can talk IPMI and AMT, which is what we use on these nodes because they're consumer-grade nodes packed into a chassis. And the fabled orange box is famous for acting up, and so now is the risky part of this demo here, which is actually showing off how it works. But this basically shows you an inventory of what we have on this machine. So what MAS does is it will boot up all the nodes, run a hardware check on it, and store that in a database. And it will expose that as high-level information that you can use to then select what you want to deploy to. So this list here just shows that I have a couple of nodes here. Some of them have been deployed. I've got 2 VMs provisioned on the first node, and I've got 1 node which is already deployed there, which is node 9. If I look at an individual node, it just shows the information that I've already been able to extract just by booting it up and running a small instance that's part of what we do as this rinse and wash step in MAS, which is to find out what is the hardware connected here. So if you've racked up a server and it's booted up, MAS will look at it and will say, OK, I know what hardware it is, and I'll store it there. And then you've got this information here. It will expose this through discovered hardware details. And so if I go down here, it's going to show me, for instance, you can't read this, but I can. It shows you how much cache is on the CPU, how many cores it has, what the asset tags are, what serial numbers are there, BIOS versions, etc. But it will expose some of that information as a high-level concept. So it will tell you how many cores are available, how much disk you have, if it's SSD or spindles, if you've got an accelerator like a GPGPU or an SSL card on it, or if you've got interesting I/O like InfiniBand on it. So we basically look at the nodes and then extract all that information up so that you can make decisions based on it. Just like you do on AWS, where you select a machine based on the size that you want. Well, MAS exposes what the hardware is like, so you can make a decision when allocating. Now, we do all this inventorying work, but the interesting part is, of course, that MAS can also do installation of the operating system onto a blank disk. So these nodes here are all blanked. We've wiped them before the demo. And as part of this, I'm going to deploy an operating system to those nodes there. So in MAS, it is fairly simple to do. You basically edit the node, and you can choose what operating system you want. I'm going to boot Windows on this first node here. And when I click on Start, we'll see one of the nodes, one of the lights here come up. And eventually, you'll see on the orange box here, and you'll see disk activity, which is the one at the bottom there. So first part of it. Okay. Of course, we don't just provision Windows, but we provision Linux-based OSs as well. And so I'm going to, as part of this, also kick off a CentOS run on this other node. And that installation is going to I've lost CentOS from here. But I'll kick off a custom run, of course. See, this is what we call the demo effect. All right, so this is at a high level what it's doing. It's going to provision Windows onto that first node over here. I am going to not do anything else on this page anymore because it's acted up. But the final piece I want to show off here is that, well, let me actually show how the how the integration works. So along with MAS itself, Chef and Canonical have partnered together to basically make a knife plugin that can drive MAS directly, which means that if you're using any Chef recipe and you've got knife set up to talk to a MAS server, then you can provision that recipe onto bare metal. Now, the first thing you can do with that plugin here is just look at the servers here, and you can also basically request a server bootstrap. Now, what this is going to do is it will go to the orange box. So it's requested node 4. If we look here, node 4 will change to allocated, and then it will move to deploying, which means that at that point, that node that was allocated will have the operating system installed on the disk, and it will be fully provisioned. In the end, you'll have Chef provisioned onto it, and it registered with the Chef management engine. And so here I'm looking, because the deployment will take a couple of minutes, I've just sort of shortcutted that, and I'm showing you what the end result is. So at the end of this, I had one node deployed, which was node 9. It's showing up here. I can choose, for instance, in the run list, something like, I don't know, Elasticsearch. So I'll just drag this onto this, save the run list. And so this is basically set up node 9 to now, when I run Chef client, to kick off an installation of Elasticsearch. And I can do a knife SSH. It's my first time really driving Chef and MAS. So, and we'll just say sudo chef client. And this will now go out to all the nodes that are registered. In this case, it's only node 9. And it will start up the deployment of the Elasticsearch stack. Of course, this is much more fun if you're doing it across 100 machines because you've got a 100-machine Elasticsearch cluster or Hadoop cluster, et cetera. But this is fundamentally the summary of what this gives you. So any recipe you have that today you work against AWS or OpenStack, you can now run on bare metal in the same way. If you've got a small bare metal cluster because you're doing test and dev in that environment, then you can drive those 10 nodes. And if you've got 100 nodes in production, you can use Maz to control that as well and drive Chef in the same way. So for the demo, that is it. I won't run any additional risks here, Mark.
No problem. Well, so you can think of Maz as a REST API to your data center. What's really cool about that is you could apply that recipe, for example, just to machines that have GPUs or that have I/O accelerators or FPGAs. You can start to really place workloads on physical assets that suit them best. And the reason this is so exciting is because the nature of the server is starting to change. It used to be that every server was sold separately with a BMC, and they all talked IPMI PXE. Maybe most of you have scripts to automate a bit of IPMI and PXE. But in the last 2 years, because of the push to hyperscale, we've seen custom vendor-specific APIs for converged infrastructure from just about every vendor. And the great thing about Maz is that it seems to be emerging as an open source project that works across all the different hardware vendors, all the different operating systems, and all the different architectures, so ARM, x86, and Power. So it gives you a simple API. On the back end, it will talk to Cisco UCS, it will talk to C-Micro from AMD, it will talk to HP Moonshot, it will talk to the new chassis from OCP, designed by Microsoft, and make all of that look like one addressable infrastructure that you can make dance with the same sort of agility that you would expect from a cloud. Maz is in use today in banking environments in New York. It's in use in telcos at Deutsche Telekom. It's in use in media companies who are doing transcoding and other sort of high-volume applications. And I hope it's going to be as useful for you, whichever operating systems you're installing with it. In the Chef community, as it has been for us in the Ubuntu community as well. So I just want to thank the AV guys for making this teleport trick possible, and the demo gods for mostly staying with us, and wish you all a fantastic ChefConf. I hope it's a really productive week, and I hope that Ubuntu is a great platform for all of your adventures in hyperscale.
Thanks very much, Mark.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah. Okay, we've had HP. We've had Canonical. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Christian. Next up, I have the pleasure of introducing one of my favorite people in tech. He's the inventor of PowerShell, and he is currently the lead architect and distinguished engineer for Windows Server, as well as for System Center. So join me in welcoming Jeffrey Snover. Jeffrey.
Hey. Great, thanks. Howdy, I'm Jeffrey Snover. As he said, I'm the lead architect for Windows Server. You might have heard of that. Windows Server, if you're not familiar with it, Windows is the world's most successful enterprise operating system. Now, to begin with, that started off to be a statement about desktops. We're a great desktop operating system company. And at some point, we said, hey, we want to get into the enterprise server business. And I will tell you, the reaction amongst the industry was howls of laughter. How are these guys going to take a desktop operating system whose defining user experience is called the blue screen of death and turn that into a trustworthy enterprise server operating system? They thought Microsoft was crazy. I know this for a fact because I didn't work at Microsoft at the time, and I was one of those people who thought there was no way they could pull it off. And yet pull it off they did. Today, this year, 73% of servers that are built will run Windows Server. Windows Server is the most successful enterprise operating system ever. That's great, but now the world is shifting to the cloud. And if we're just honest about it, Windows has challenges in being a great cloud operating system. We have some of the world's largest cloud services running Windows, Bing, Azure, Office 365. But the reality is that the bulk of the marketplace, we are not the preferred choice. So we have some challenges and we have some changes required. That's my job. My job is to make it make sense for Windows to be the world's best cloud operating system. Changes are required. We approach this with humbleness and wake up every day with a challenger mindset. We're going to work hard to earn your business and trust as a cloud operating system. Now, how are we going to do that? And the answer is simple. Microsoft is a very simple beast. We've got one playbook, and we do it really, really well. And that playbook is platform and partners. We build platforms that enable partners to do amazing things and make a ton of money. And they make a ton of money because they produce great offerings for customers. It's really that simple. Now, if we have anybody in the audience old enough to remember, there used to be a time where you go to the store to buy software. There were physical stores. You'd go there, and software came in a box. And you'd look at that box, and you'd say, oh, that looks pretty good. But before you bought that software, you'd turn the box around, and you'd look to see which printers it supported. Yeah? And of course, your printer wasn't supported, so you bought WordPerfect. I mean, WordPerfect was not that great of a word processing system, but the great thing was that it supported all the printers. That's where they made their investment. Now, this was a bad world. It was bad for the printer manufacturers. They'd invest all this money in a great printer, and then nobody could print anything to it. I'm serious. This is the way the world used to be. And it was bad for the software vendors because they said, oh, I want to produce this great piece of software, but nobody will buy it because I don't support enough printers. Okay? So Microsoft then used the platform play. We invented the Windows printer driver model. Really, if you sit back and reflect on it, honestly, it was one of the most revolutionary pieces of technology and transformational pieces of technology the industry's ever had. Because what it meant was all the printer manufacturers wrote a Windows printer driver, and then any software could now print to any printer. It was great for the printer manufacturers, it was great for the software writers, and it was great for the consumers, because now they could pick the best software and run it on the best printers. It's a platform and partner play. That's what Microsoft does, and that's what we're going to do in the cloud. Now, I mentioned to you, changes are required to become a great cloud operating system. As an architect for server, I looked at that and I said, okay, what are the things I'm going to need to do? And one of the clearest things was we needed to manage things differently. You manage things differently in the cloud than you do in the enterprise. And what became clear to me was, whereas I had this great asset in PowerShell, I really needed something else. I really needed a great configuration management platform. And so that's what we developed. And that's what is PowerShell Desired State Configuration. PowerShell Desired State Configuration is a distributed, heterogeneous configuration management platform. The way that platform works is we work with all the partners in the industry so that if they have anything that needs to be configured, they write a desired state configuration resource. Then we work with the configuration management tool industry to get their tools to consume the desired state configuration management APIs. And when they do that, they can manage every element that plugs into the desired state configuration platform. What this enables is our customers the safety to be able to pick the configuration management tool of their choice, knowing that it will manage everything. Now, as we took that platform play and went out to the industry to talk about it, we've been very successful. But in all honesty, as we talked to some of the configuration management vendors, they reacted with hostility and didn't want to have anything to do with us. And then we talked to Chef. And we had a great engagement with the Chef guys. I don't know if you've picked this up, but the Chef guys have lots of smart people. And if you've looked at, have you noticed the people they've been hiring lately? I mean, just world-class talent. You know, Chef is just one of my favorite companies because they're populated with awesome people. And when we talked to them about this play, they instantaneously got it, instantaneously were friendly to it, and ever since then, we've been working together on this. Now, again, the platform is all about enabling both the consumers and the suppliers of configuration. So as we've been working with the team, they've been telling us, hey, this works. Hey, we have some challenges here. And jointly, we've been figuring out those interfaces so to maximize the value that they get out of the platform. So that's just been going well. I got to tell you, it's just you know, personally, it's just a delight working with the Chef guys. I really enjoy those engineers. Anyway, there's a great phrase, and that is, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Okay? So yes, it's great. I'm having a great time working with the Chef engineers. The Chef engineers are having a great time working with us. But the proof of the pudding is in the eating. The question is it actually delivering you value? Well, one of the things I like the most about the Chef team is that they share the same culture that Microsoft shares, which is this passionate desire to solve customers' problems and the ready willingness to hear about things that are problems where we're not meeting your needs and responding to that feedback. So we'd like to hear from you. Are the things we're doing together meeting your needs? Are they not? And where they aren't, be clear about that, and we'll go fix them. So again, that's just a great thing with working with Chef. Now, some of you are sitting there saying, okay, well, that's great, but I'm not moving to the cloud. I'm an enterprise. That's where I'm staying. Is this all going to be investments that doesn't help me? And nothing could be further from the case. Now, if you recall, I mentioned to you that the defining experience of the desktop operating system used to be the blue screen of death. When was the last time you experienced a blue screen of death? The amazing investments we made. Okay, they still exist, but they are very rare these days. It's been quite a long time since I've seen one. The investments that we made in the Windows Server operating system to make it robust, to make it trustworthy enough that you can take your enterprise businesses and run it on it, gave benefits to the desktop operating system. It made it more stable, more reliable, made it a great experience. In the same way, our investments in the cloud are going to reap benefits to those people still on the enterprise. It's going to be more manageable, more predictable, more reliable, faster, more agile. So just great stuff. Now, today, you saw Mark Rusinovich on stage, and he was here last year, our rock star engineer, Mark Rusinovich. He is the lead architect and CTO over Azure, and a very good friend of mine. And we've been working together to bring about some great innovations in the cloud at all levels of the operating system and services. And we're going to be talking about those at the Build and Ignite conferences in a few short weeks. So I strongly encourage you to pay attention to those. The next stage of this revolution is going to happen, and I think you're going to enjoy it. So thank you very much for your time. Thanks.
So great news and great stuff to come from our partner community.